Well, the White House and the lying legacy corporate corrupt mainstream media, as well as the Democratic establishment, are absolutely having a near meltdown over the election of Giorgia Meloni as Prime Minister of Italy. They are labeling her far right. She's basically, them almost making her out to be the great granddaughter of Mussolini, and she's going to bring Italy back to quote unquote fascism. Funny. Really, what she's doing is fighting for God, family, country. She is opposed to this idea of dropping gender identity, dropping your race identity, dropping all identity, and just becoming a number of the state, a number of the corporations, to be a mindless number of line up, do as you're told, and by the way, buy this because we said so. She opposed the vaccine passports in Italy and the great overreach and over encroachment of power, all in the name of democracy. Isn't it funny how many of these liberals and authoritarians are constantly talking about we must stop the threats against democracy, yet they themselves are constantly the ones that are the threat to democracy. They want to take away your right to speak. They want to take away your freedom to disagree, and they will censor you. They will remove you. And this isn't just happening in the United States; it's happening in places like Italy. And the Italian people said, "That's enough." And so while the media engages in just absolutely thrashing and trashing the new prime minister and giving you nothing but sound bites and hyperbole and over the top rhetoric, what they're not asking is the obvious question: if she really is a quote unquote fascist, which she is not, but let's take their argument for a minute. If she really is, how'd she get elected? I mean, she didn't rise to power through an armed revolt. She didn't come into power because there was a military coup on Italy. The people chose her. And you don't think for a moment that the opposition there and the media there weren't saying about her there what our media is saying about her here. Of course they were. This is the way they attack. So, but they've labeled her this far right extremist, like an ultra MAGA. What she wants to know is, hey, she even asked the obvious question: why were places where you can buy like pot open during the pandemic, but churches weren't? And see, these are the things that are really on the minds of people. Italy has the former prime minister was a big open borders kind of guy. Well, bring the migrants here. And she's not. She says, no, we have to have laws and people have to come in legally. This is how we sustain our economy. This is how we have to take care of what that phrase be? Italy first. Take care of Italian people first. Italian people who are facing, inflation like we are and worse when it comes to things like their energy costs. And the Italian people said, that's enough. That's enough. That's enough. That's enough. Because of the overreach with these governmental leaders that think that once they're, quote, elected, that they then are some type of emperor king that can thwart the democratic process, yet at the same time, they'll warn us that anybody that's actually running on democratic principles, things like freedom, the ability to disagree, dissent, oh no, they're the threats to democracy. They got to go. There's a new poll out today that apparently the Republicans are in big trouble in these midterm elections. They're not going to take the Senate. And now it's in question if they can really take the House. This has been a narrative that's been building now for a few weeks. And of course, these polls are focused in on Pennsylvania. Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman running against Dr. Oz for the United States Senate. Let me just say this about Fetterman. Fetterman is a buffoon. And I'm not even talking about the medical issues going on in his life right now. He was a buffoon before he had medical issues. Fetterman was one of these guys, wasn't he like in his mid 40s? And he was still just like a professional college student. He was living off of his parents, literally. He was an adult man child living off of an allowance and a professional student. And he got elected to some small town there in Pennsylvania. And it was one time was a booming steel town. And then, of course, when the steel industry left, the town literally just fell into decay. And under his mayoral leadership, which he was never really technically there, but under his mayoral leadership, they brought in things like, wine tasting and art galleries, because this is what's going to build our economy. In a mining town? In a steel mill town? Really? And, you can buy like a 4-bedroom house there for like $4,000, but the crime is absolutely through the roof because Fetterman was a guy that wanted to put all of this utopian liberal philosophy in play on this town in Pennsylvania where he was elected mayor. And then, of course, brought in all of the Green New Deal bullhawk and renewable energy bullhawk. And he absolutely, what was left of that town, he completely destroyed. And now crime is actually through the roof there. It's off the charts there. But Fetterman himself, especially as lieutenant governor, has been a big soft on crime guy. He thinks it's cool to let felons out. He thinks it's awesome and it's progressive and, really, prisons are like a thing of the past. We need to let these people out. Well, of course, Dr. Oz and others have been pointing out that Fetterman has an awful record on crime. So what does Fetterman's campaign do? Well, they get the aid of a sheriff in the state of Pennsylvania to cut a political ad. And this sheriff talks about, I'm tired of John Fetterman being accused of being soft on crime. He's not. And it turns out the sheriff is under investigation for bribery. Can't make this stuff up. But yet, Fetterman has like a 10-point lead over Dr. Oz. Fetterman, earlier this year, did suffer a stroke, to which his campaign acknowledges this gives him auditory problems. In other words, he can't speak. And notice now when he does give a speech, oftentimes he misspeaks, kind of a lot like Biden. And his campaign doesn't really let him freelance questions from reporters. They whisk him away and he doesn't answer questions. And Dr. Oz, as have others, have called into question his mental acuity to be able to serve in the United States Senate. He's had a stroke. That's not attacking the man, and that's not making it up or embellishing anything. He's had a stroke. It has affected his speech and some of his motor skills. Has it affected his ability to think, to reason, to respond? See, the Democrats really seem to like, it's obvious that Joe Biden has dementia. That's not even speculation anymore. There are videos all over YouTube basically mocking the man that when he gets done delivering his speech, he doesn't know where he's supposed to go or what he's supposed to do. And as one doctor has put it, when he's befuddled, he puts his hands out as he's walking, trying to figure out where he's supposed to go, which he said if you go in any dementia unit of any hospital or institution, this is how they walk. We have a president who doesn't have cognitive reason. They've got him pumped up on enough Prevagen and whatever, super secret drugs the CIA and the intel community can pump into him to make him appear semi-functional in public, kind of like they used to with Hillary Rodham Clinton. But at the end of the day, he really, if he goes off script, they're in trouble. And they know they're in trouble. And they don't care because it isn't actually Biden making the decision. It's the people behind Biden. And that's the same thing that they want to do in Pennsylvania with Fetterman. And it is unconscionable to me that this guy that has a serious lack of real accomplishment, he ran a city in Pennsylvania into the ground. He is a just a leftist libloon, and he is beating Dr. Oz. Of course, what these new polls are supposed to show us is that the Republicans are in trouble. No, no, the media's done a good job at spinning a man like Dr. Oz, who smart, articulate, for years has been on television as the guy. And now all of a sudden he's the villain. He's an extremist. He's a and Fetterman has pictured this guy of the people. He's got his tats and he's always wearing a hoodie. How many, seriously, 50-year-old guys wear hoodies like all the time? Unless they're like in Hell's Angels or, like a street thug. But this is how they're trying to portray him. He's a man of the people. He's a working man. No, he's not. He's a trust fund kid. He's a trust fund kid who's still like a man child, and he has no real accomplishment. But that's okay. They just need him to be the figure out front, get the votes, and then the handlers and the hand-picked advisors who faces you'll never see and who did not get elected, they will actually set the policy and do the governing without ever having been elected themselves. That's how it works. Now, again, for Fetterman to have this kind of lead, it shows you that the old Democratic machine in Pennsylvania is pretty strong, and it is there, and it is working. For years, was it Ed Lindell was on Fox News and every other cable news outlet, and he was the guy that had his hand on the pulse of Pennsylvania politics. And I remember him distinctly saying when it looked like that Pennsylvania might flip red, and he said, and this is almost a direct quote, this was several years ago, but he said, and I quote, "The Democratic machine in Pennsylvania will make sure that Pennsylvania stays Democrat." I mean, this was right about the time, I think it was during the Romney Obama campaign. And it looked like Romney might actually be able to pull off getting all of those blue collar workers to finally realize that Obama and the Democrats had done nothing for them, and they needed to go in a different direction. And the party bosses of Pennsylvania, even though the polls were, just absolutely neck and neck tied, they guaranteed be no problem. Pennsylvania's going to stay blue, and it did by quite a wide margin. Just like President Trump could have flipped Pennsylvania, but it didn't quite happen. Now, is that a problem with the Pennsylvania people, or does that really mean the Democratic machine, and you understand what that means, is just still really functional? They're able to do what they need to do in the cities of Pittsburgh and Philadelphia to keep their control of the state. And, hey, let's go out there, start taking names of tombstones, and got to get some of these dead people registered to vote. Got to make sure we stay Democrat. But there's also this, when you see some of these polls, and they especially want to make it about these Republicans backed by Trump, they're going to kill the Republican Party. That is the narrative the media wants you to believe. And in a place like Pennsylvania, if certain people are really just hell-bent, they're going to back this Fetterman no matter what. I can't fix stupid. You can't fix stupid. Good candidates can't fix stupid. Some people really are just hell-bent on, hey, abuse me. Some women, it's sad, no matter how much they have been mistreated in a toxic relationship, you just can't get them to end it and walk away. And sometimes there are just people that in certain areas of the country, it doesn't matter how worse their life has gotten under Democratic rule. They're like an abused spouse who just refuses to break off the relationship and walk away. And so I'm sorry, you can't always fix stupid. But now let me bring this all together now. The Republicans are not in trouble. And that's why the media and the White House and everybody has so over the top overreacted to what happened in Italy. Candidates who are holding the line for core values and for the real freedoms of people are going to do very well on election night. Ron DeSantis, Abbott, Kemp in Georgia, they're all going to do well. And I'm telling you, the vast majority of the Trump candidates are going to do well. They're not all going to win, no. But the Republicans, the conservatives, the people, the real conservatives who are pushing back and have said enough of this woke nonsense, enough of this social justice, equity hogwash. We have people that can't pay their bills, they can't afford gas, they go to the stores, they can't afford groceries. We've got this influx of illegals who are a drain on our entire system. These are the things that Americans actually care about. And so I'm sorry, Michael Moore. I know you've got this wet dream fantasy that there are all these hidden Democrats that nobody knows about that can't wait to get to the polls to keep abortion legal. But I'm telling you, the only part of your party that was whipped up by all of that, we're going to vote Democrat anyway. So you didn't gain anything. The liberals are panicked because populism and the real fight for democracy, the real fight to keep you free and to keep your rights intact, that's coming from the conservative movement, not the Democratic movement, no matter how much they try to lie and spin it. Take heart on that.